everybody, and welcome back to Time to Go. Bob here. Thanks so much for stopping by the channel today. So today we're going to be taking a look at a couple of Seiko dive watches that for whatever reason didn't quite gain the popularity as much as some of their other models. I will say I've been looking through some of the forums and there is quite the cult following for these though. The watches we're looking at are from the Stargate lineup. I have a first gen. This is the white dialed version, the SKZ323. We're going to focus mostly on this one, although I also have a second gen orange version. I'm not sure the model number of this one off the top of my head, but I will post that here right now. So these were lent in by a good friend of mine, Chris. He's lent in multiple watches now to the channel. If you happen to be on Instagram, give him a follow at Seikoholic7. He's got quite the collection and posts some really good photos of them there. So let's spin the camera around and get into the watches. Alright, so first off, the nickname. So the name comes from the movie, and there's a show as well, Stargate, and it's due to the shape at the top of the bezel here. You can see where it sort of protrudes there. It resembles the shapes on the outer ring of the Stargate or portal in the movie. Gives it kind of a cool look, and it can even be used to help with gripping the bezel. This, by the way, is an aftermarket bracelet. The original is here, and I'll just show you that quickly. And it has a fairly unique design. I don't think I've seen this on any other Seiko models. I could be wrong. It does have solid end links. Typical Seiko pressed clasp with dive extension. So if you're new to the Stargate watches, these are discontinued. I was actually searching around to see what this particular model was going for, and it's a little bit tricky to find. Some of the other versions are a little bit more accessible. Pricing was all over the place, so I'm going to stay away from pricing in today's video. I will lay out the specs so you have the info if you're looking for one. The case size on this one comes in at a little bit of a bigger size. Typical Seiko fashion, though it wears great for the size. Comes in at a little over 43 millimeters. It's just a touch wider here where the crown is. The case juts out just slightly. Lug to lug is 49.5 millimeters. We have a 22 millimeter lug opening, and the thickness is just short of 14 millimeters. The second gen here is identical in measurements except for one, and that is the thickness. That's just due to the fact that this has a flat crystal versus the domed crystal of the first generation. The other difference between the two is the movement. The first gen runs the 7S36, where Gen 2 runs the 4R36, which gives you the hacking and hand winding upgrade. Both have a water resist of 200 meters. The dial on this one has some nice dimension with the raised chaptering and that two-level dial. I really like how they tied the red-tipped second hand in with that ring around the crown. The second gen I'll just grab here quickly. They do the exact same, only with the orange ring there. So when it comes to Seiko divers, we obviously have to talk about lume, and I'm going to do a side-by-side of both versions. We've got some rock-solid lume here, as always, with Seiko divers. Both versions are nice and bright, long-lasting, and they definitely don't disappoint. The bezel is a 120-click bezel. Pretty nice action. There is a little bit of play with it, but it's not horrible. And one thing I kind of wanted to show you that's a little bit different is if we look at the top where we have the little Stargate symbol, there is a screw there holding the bezel in place. I've never seen that, I don't believe, on a Seiko diver. The only watch I've ever seen in person that does this is my Zin 104. I know a few different companies do that, but I know the Zin used multiple screws around the perimeter of the bezel. The case on these are just so typical Seiko in their design, which is definitely a good thing. Just the way they do their cases make them just conform perfectly to your wrist, and also makes them wear smaller than the dimensions would suggest. The combination of brushwork and polishing is really nicely executed. I just love the side profile of these and how the case bulges out if you look on the other side at the crown, giving it that asymmetrical look. Really cool look. So overall, another excellent case design from Seiko. So let's take a look on wrist. So I'm going to show you both versions on wrist, but we'll start here with the white one, and check this out. It's like it was molded specifically for my wrist. Nobody does this quite like Seiko when it comes to case design, especially with their divers. It's really too bad these particular ones were discontinued. With some of the cool colors they're coming out with on the new dive models, would have been fun to see what they could have done with the Stargate lineup. So just a quick shot here of the white one. Let's swap over to the orange. So here is the orange, and even on a NATO that's not particularly thin, it still hugs the wrist really nicely. Now, I know for some of you guys, the Cyclops is a no-go. I've never really been bothered by them, although the one issue I have is just the potential for knocking them with how much they protrude from the crystal. It's never happened to me before, but the orange on this particular one really pops against that black bezel. I think both models look great. If they were to come out with a new version, I would definitely be a buyer. So that's it for today, guys. Again, big thanks to Chris for lending these in. Give him a follow on Instagram at Seikoholic7. If you haven't already, you can find me there too at TimeToGo 1978. Thanks so much, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.